Today we are going to look at space advantage. See, we have been looking at various dimensions of chess. We looked at the local force domination, then we looked at the time dimension, which is like advantage in time, like getting quickly more forces to the game. Right, that we looked at it, and now we are going to look at advantage in space, right? So space and time, anyway, you would learn from physics and this also, right? They are kind of related. So similarly in chess also, but in a slightly different way that they are related. So what happens is, if you control more space, first you have to understand what do you mean by space control, right? So territory control, and which you control over more than your opponent, right? That's how we will define it. And the more you control your space, your pieces have got more freedom to move, more options, more ways to combine and attack. While if the person who has got less space, he has lesser options to move his pieces, and hence its game is more difficult. So that is the reason why sometimes having an advantage in space can lead you to other advantages, like some other positional advantage, and then you can launch an attack which is difficult to defend, etc., right? So that is what is the space is also an advantage that you should count and you should be aware of. And both, you should know how to grab space advantage, make benefit of it, and the other side is, if you are defending, then you should sorry so you should also know how to defend when you have less space. Then what is the remedy that you do, right? Both things you need to be aware of when you have advantage and when you are facing an advantage, right? So first, let us do a simple thing. Let us just define space advantage in terms of some, it's like mathematics, right? Let us just do it. So, there is your half of the board. Halfway through the thing, if you draw the line, right, there is white's half and there is black's half. So what we will do is, we will define a space count system, right? You count how many squares in your opponent's half that you control with your pawns or pieces, okay? That you will count it, and then you will also count how many squares does your opponent control in your half of the board. Forget about their half of the board, that each one will anyway mostly control, but how much you control in opponent's half, right? Each party or each side, and that will determine. So that way is a mathematical way of, and very easy way to learn. See, afterwards, see, once you get practice, then just your eye spots it and you don't even need to know that who has the space advantage. But initially you might require this kind of a mechanism, right? So let us look at this. So this is the position, right? And let us do a count of who has got how much, right? Who has got how much. So I have, just to make it simpler, I have in my same study that I had shared earlier, where I had put the force advantage, the time advantage, in that same study I have added the examples for the space advantage also. So S1 is the first example right here. Okay, you can see all the green circles that I have marked, those are the squares that are controlled by the white into black's half, right? So they are all on the other side. Let us just count. Knight is controlling these two squares, b5 and d5. The pawn is controlling c6 and which one? E6. Then this pawn is controlling d5 and f5, right? Then the bishop is controlling g5 as well as h6, and the queen is controlling h5 square, right? See, controlling means how much force that they are projecting. Okay, it is not that they are exclusively controlling, but just getting a sense of how much force are you projecting. So if you count it, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, probably there are, yeah, this queen is also projecting straight forward and controlling the d5 square, so that becomes 9. And then there is, yeah, this knight, this pawn is controlling, this knight is also controlling, so that way you can count it twice or 3 times. So 10 squares total, right? Some squares are repeated, but which means that you have additional control, like d5. d5 is a very strongly held square by white in black's half. There is a pawn supporting, there is a knight supporting, and a queen supporting, right? So it's very different. But that's how you count it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Right? These are the projections of white into black's half. And if you count the projections of black into white's half, start with the rook. Rook is projecting 1, 2, and 3 square. So a4, a3, and a2. Okay. Pawn is projecting into b4 and d4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Knight is projecting into e4 and g4. So 6, 7, right? And after that, queen is not projecting anything, bishop is not projecting, pawn is not any, none of the other pawns. So 7 squares is what black is projecting into white's half, and white is projecting 10 squares. So that way white has got a slight advantage, which visually also your eye also, I think, will be able to uh, make a reasonable judgment that you will feel that just with this pawn structure and here, white has got a slight advantage because white has got a supported pawn advanced into black's half, right? And visually also you get it, but mathematically you get this kind of a thing. So you may want to go through some of your games, right? And just take a cutoff, say after 10 moves or 12 moves, right? Or maybe 15 moves also, it's okay. And just try to do this space count system, especially some games, interesting games that you want to study. So you will also get a perspective of who had the space advantage and what happened after that, etc. So maybe do that for about 7, 8 games, 10 games, and you will get an idea. Okay. Any questions? Let me open the chat. Any questions on this? Fairly easy to think. These systems that I recommend, they are very, very simple to use. But again, it's like you probably next year you will not use it, but this year it is important for you to get a hang of these things and then use it, right? So again, very simple space count system. Okay, so if there is no more questions, then I will go to the next thing and I will see. Now we'll see some examples. So there is see, we had looked at rooks, bishops, and knights and how they, what are their specific, what do you call, specific powers or specific situations in which they excel, right? So rooks always require open files because they can project their force straight in one line, and which is a very popular, very powerful force, more than the bishop's diagonal force, because that line cannot be crossed, right? We had seen it in the end game. But rooks do require open files, and if they have got open files, then they can be decisive with the space advantage, right? So we'll see an example of this one. So this is the example. Capablanca was an ex-world champion by 1929. He had lost it in 27 to Alekhine, right? But he continued to be a very strong player all the way up to 1938, I think. So, or maybe 42 when he died. Till that point of time, he was a very strong player. So he used to demonstrate a very simple style of play and positional mastery. He used to endgame master. So we'll just see an example of how he converts. Okay, so this is the position. Capablanca is playing white. Okay, and his opponent Trebal is playing black. You can see that white has a massive space advantage, right? Very clear. There is no doubt about it. Just visually looking at it, you know that it is. But still you have to break through, right? Sometimes it is not easy to break through. Black has got these two rooks on the last rank. They can come here, right? So, how does white go about converting this space advantage, right? So we'll see this example. I've added it to the study. So yeah, so this is the, okay. So starting with, okay, so white knows that if he allows the black rook to come onto the A file, right? If he just plays something which is not a immediate forcing move, right? Then it will, black will get a very good game if his rooks are able to come on the on this A file, open A file. So let us see how white starts with. It starts with playing B6. Okay. Now, unfortunately, the space advantage of white is so much that queen has to go back onto the last rank, right, and block his rooks. See, that is what happens when you are short of space. Then you are squeezed backwards, and now white very cleverly now has put this. So queen goes to B8. It doesn't matter whether, even if it goes to C8. There is a reason why it goes to B8, because it needs to keep the C8 square vacant for the rook or the bishop. Okay, that's why it doesn't want to get entangled. Okay, so now that this happens, then immediately white grabs the uh, A1 square. Okay, so now what white is saying is, now he's controlling the file and he's not going to allow black easily to come into this one. And if black does contest it, then white will simply go on to A7 square, because there is a pawn. So if black does exchange, then he will get a passed pawn on A7, right? I hope you understand why black does not play this, because if black plays this, then see, it is a mistake to exchange the queens for white. Okay, but white will simply go here and wait and let black exchange. But if black exchanges it, then this pawn will become very dangerous, one step away from queening, and the entire game will shift here, and white will attack along this line, and then make sure that the pawn queens. Okay, so that is why black cannot contest it now. Okay, so black does play rook c8. Now let us see how how white continues to press his advantage. So white wants to press his advantage. First of all, get rooks onto the open file. So which means that rooks have to be on the front. So he plays queen to b4. Okay, queen to b4, because he wants his rook to be ahead of the queen. He's going to triple it on this line probably, but it is important to put the rook ahead. Okay, so that is the idea behind queen to b4. Okay, now black unfortunately does not have too many moves. He has to shuffle his pieces on the last rank. The bishop is very constrained. It's a bad bishop, right? We'd call it. The knight also is hemmed in. The only squares that it has is on the last rank, either d8 or h8. By the way, that h8 is very important square for the knight to have it. Okay, and you should know why. I will just explain, because but knight, why the rook comes here is that knight needs to keep this option of h8, because there is a tactical possibility that white knight will go to h4 and then sacrifice itself here, right? Then when the pawn takes it, then this pawn will become a passed pawn, right? So again, there is a chance that it will run ahead. So these are all you are near the end game. So promotion of the pawn is a very big important theme. So you need to keep there. So the knight has to keep a option of going to h8 and controlling the g6 square. Okay, sometimes it may happen. So fine, rook d8. Now white goes and grabs the a7 square, right, with the help of the pawn. So now fine. So black has to shuffle. He cannot do too many things. He cannot create a breakthrough. He cannot open any position, right? So he tries to keep defensive moves, and he's basically asking white, okay, you have advantage, but prove, show me how you can win. So white starts doubling his rook on the open file. Okay, so rook a1. Black is shuffling the pieces. Rook h to a1. Okay, so this has happened. Now black is still continuing. See, there are not too many options for black. So rook 1 to a4. Again, why this is important is queen wants to go behind the rook. So rook has to come up enough so that queen can go behind it. Okay, that is the whole purpose of this rook 1 to a4. See, white is like, it is like white has got a full control over the game, and he's not hurrying, he's not taking any risks, and he is very coolly and going to crush black. That is why we will see this example. See, now white has tripled on the open file. Still, still there is a, you still don't know how you will do it, right? Because you cannot, can you think of what you will do now, how we will proceed further? You have to have some idea. So you have tripled on the A file, which is good, but what, how will you go beyond it, right? So you require some idea. You require some idea for this. Anyone wants to take a guess? Okay, he's saying white has to play. Okay, that was initially I think Ansh said. Yeah. Any other comment? Okay, I will just tell. The idea of white is to get this knight from f3 to d2 to b3 to a5 and then double attack. So the knight and the rook are going to together attack the pawn on b7. Okay, and black will be left with very what you call, very only one or two ways in which he can defend, and that will again be crushed further. But that's the whole idea. But white is still there is a tactical possibility that you need to keep pace with. See, directly if white tries to go here, right, then there is a chance that black knight might sacrifice itself on g5, and when white takes it, queen might come down all the way down here and start checking the white king, and maybe there is a chance that maybe it will get a perpetual check, because see, the king side otherwise is completely open, right? So this is a possibility that white needs to keep hang off. So he cannot allow, while he tries to go here, suddenly this knight might break through, and if the knight breaks through, right, suddenly the position will change completely, because the knight can then jump here and then give a check and exchanges. A lot of things will happen, and then the entire tempo of the game will change. So it is like in a cricket chase of some target, right? You know the famous that happened few days back, right? And you lose a crucial wicket. Suppose Pant had lost its wicket, so even though there were like 35 runs needed or 30 runs needed, suddenly the game can change because one set batsman gets out, and then uh, it's become very difficult, right? So similarly, there is too much noise. Someone has to shut down or mute himself. Otherwise, I will mute everybody. Okay, fine. So that is the possibility. So let us see how Capablanca obviously is aware of this one. So rook a king f8. Yeah, this we have seen it. See, king goes to g3. So actually, it may not be the fastest way, but Capablanca is aware of this possibility. So he is going here, right? So he's going here to make sure that he's not allowing that kind of a opening up or some sacrificial combination which will go into a drawing of a game with perpetual. So that is why he's doing it. Some moves are like, I may not be able to explain exactly each and every move, but black is shuffling here. Now white finds that yes, now uh, he has got an idea now. Earlier also he could have done it, but for whatever reason now white king has come here. Now the queen will not be able to come to h2 and give a check. So the king has come here. So even if the knight sacrifices itself, black queen will not get the chance to intrude here. That is what white has made sure. And now you will see how the thing will start. So now the knight starts moving. Okay, and black is still shuffling because still very little to do. So now he is creating a space because he says that the knight is coming to a5. So he wants his knight to come to d8 and defend the b7 pawn. Okay, so this and this, right? So just it still looks as if it is very much what you call intact. Just about black is holding, and now you have to think what more can white do, right? Because otherwise this is just about defended, just about. Black has kept himself the rook some option of movement, the rook and the king, nothing else can move but that. So now what is the big thing? So now there is one beautiful move that Capablanca finds in this, which is bishop to a6. Okay, now there is a triple attack and there is no way to defend triply the b7 pawn, And in fact, the bishop is offered for free, right? So bishop is offered, but is it offered? It's a sham sacrifice. So it is practically forced. Then white takes this bishop. Okay. So now what else? Now this rook has entered. Now it is starting to threaten the pawn on h7, and after that this pawn will just run down and become a queen. So so now the game actually, after a lot of preparation, but now black tries to hold it. Okay, but unfortunately it looks as if right now this is getting hold, because if white takes the rook, black king will take it, and then again it's not easy for you because you cannot take c6. So but white finds a tactical method. Rook takes d8, now forcing the other rook to take it, and now knight takes c6. Now the queen and the bishop, rook are forked. In fact, all the three, both the rooks as well as the queen are attacked. Obviously, queen will have to defend itself, but after that, the other rook will fall. Then this pawn will also fall on a6, and now after that, white will be able to uh, queen the pawn and then win it. So at this point of time, black resigned, but this was an illustration of how when you have complete space domination, how you can create even if it is a slow plan, you can still very easily take it to fruition, because the other side cannot really do anything, right? This is an extreme example, may not always happen with this much, but if such a thing happens, then the other side is practically paralyzed, and then you can, with a calm head, you can think of a good plan and then put everything towards that plan, and you will 99% of the time you will succeed, because the defense will not be able to hold it. Okay, fine, cool. So yeah.
Sir, could you go back a couple of moves?
Yeah, we'll go back. You want to go back?
Like before before he started moving, like
Yeah, bishop a6.
even back, all
Even
the way back.
even back.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like before the knight started moving.
Sorry.
Before the knight started moving.
Before the knight started. Okay, here. This is where.
So couldn't you just play? Okay, wait. Yeah, never mind. Nothing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bishop a6 wouldn't work here, right?
Which one?
Because the rook would. Bishop a6
Yeah, bishop
wouldn't
a6
it just
could work earlier also, possibly, right? But yeah, I mean, now if you put to Indian and all, Indian might do it earlier itself. But the knight to d2 to b3 to a5 was a kind of clean thing. You can see it, right? You can see visually the force coming there, and there are tactically, there could earlier also the bishop a6 could possibly have worked, but you have to calculate a lot, so it is not easy, because if pawn takes it, then rook cannot take the bishop, right, for free. It is the other rook is there, so it is not so easy. There might have been ways in which you could have pushed the pawn and then taken this, etc., but far more complicated to calculate. But if you see knight to d2 b3 a5, see, black is not able to do anything. So knight, you can bring one more additional force, while black is just about managing to hold, and then you play bishop a6, then it is a very clear and sure shot win, right? So that's the idea. Okay, fine. So this was one example. Now we will see, we'll see one more example here. Again, you will see that white has got a space advantage. White's bishop is, it's the same colored bishop position, but white's bishop is much better than black's bishop, right? Black bishop is blocked by its own pawns. White has got a open this one. So what do you think? I mean, obviously white is better, and in this case, white has got actually a single move, short shot double attack actually. So queen to b1, if you see, it is attacking the h7 square as well as the b7 pawn. So obviously h7 will have to be defended.
Sir,
Yeah.
in this situation, can white go to h5, like when the queen is on d1?
Okay, let us see, but it is not such a great move to go to f5.
Then you can make your rook go to g3.
Yeah, see, black will do this. Okay, black will do this. And now it is not so easy for you to go back and defend also. So I mean, you are where will you go back now? You'll go back, or you might come
Queen
here.
h6.
Yeah, queen h6. See, the problem is,
And then rook to f3 and then h3.
so when you do this, I see what you're saying, and so the answer for that is this. Okay. So now if you play rook to f3, okay, there are two ways that black can do. Either black can play rook to thing, or queen to e7 also it can play. And now even if you go here, you will not be able to make much of it there. Okay. So this is, I mean, there are ways of, that's what, there are ways of defending, but here what you see instead is that queen b1 immediately forces, he's attacking, double attack, right? Now double attack, and obviously you will have to play h6, and now you play queen to b7. Now you have got a passed c pawn on c5. So now it should be very easy for you to press home the advantage, because the pawn is going to be very decisive, and you are one pawn up. So a one pawn up, and that to a passed pawn on the 5th rank, right, with open thing. So now this rook will also come in. The game will be decided on the B and C files here. Okay. All right. So we will go to one more example very quickly. Yeah. So this is a wonderful example. It doesn't look very black to play here, by the way. White to play would be even more stronger, but let us say even if we give a chance for black to play, right? So black does try to get extract itself out of it, but see the power of the white bishop, right, through the center of the board, right? How it will force. Actually, practically all the moves are forced. So white takes the queen, black takes it, and you may be thinking what is the thing, how white is going to, but bam, white rook to a8, pinning the black bishop, threatening bishop to b7 next, white bishop to b7. And then if black takes the bishop, then black's rook will be gone, right? So it's an exchange up white will be. That is what is the threat, and there is no defense against it. There is absolutely no defense. Rook goes to, bishop moves anywhere, then the other rook will fall. And if rook goes to f8, right, then yeah, this is the only thing you may want to try. Rook goes to f8, then also bishop goes to c6, and it's a Zugzwang now. So now what will black play? If he plays any of the pawn moves, it will get killed, right? Any of the pawn moves, it will get killed. It cannot, if it moves the king away, then also this bishop will go here and kind of pin this bishop and win the rook, or win the exchange. Yeah, rook to d8, right? Rook to d8, now bishop to b7. Now, so see, there is a double attack, and there is nothing that you can do. So there is the whole idea. So no matter what it does, so black decides to move the king to f8, but white goes ahead with the plan. There is nothing to be done. Bishop takes b7, rook takes this. King here, check is there. There is only one move, and now the rook simply goes, cleans up the h7 pawn, and that is going to get decisive, right? I mean, it's a very simple to show, but yeah, this is just going to over. Game is over, right? Okay, so that was one more example of a space advantage. There is one more also, which is very quickly again. This maybe you can go through this S5. Okay, I will not go through this, but I will cover again. This is a terrific example of a knight having a space advantage, right? Knight getting an outpost in the opponent territory. Now the knight is much more powerful than this bishop, black's bishop, and the entire game gets decided very quickly. Within 7-8 moves, it is over, right? You see, go through this study, because I have put the variations, and the handout is also there. Handout also is covering this on the second pick. Yeah, this is the position. So I have cleared it, given here also. what I will do is, what is the time? We have about 6-7 minutes. So let me show an example again from Capablanca of how to defend against the space advantage. Okay, and this is coming right from the opening. Very quickly we'll see it. But this is a Queen's Gambit opening, and Capablanca invented a system or evolved a system which has become very popular way of defending even today. So we'll see that the starting is d4, d5, c4, e6, Queen's Gambit. I have not taught it, but you probably know about this already from your exposures. So knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, bishop e7. This is standard thing, and e3, black castles. This much is very much standard. Now black is playing. So this is the system that Capablanca introduced. Knight b to d7. He does not want to play knight c6 because he wants to play the pawn c7 to c6 to shore up the d5 pawn. Okay, so rook to c1, c6, yeah. And we'll see how he uses a particular way of freeing up the position. So at this point of time, if you do the space count, right, it will be that white has got much more space than, not much more, but somewhat more space than black, definitely. Okay, at this point of time. Now, but how does black now? He waits for this. This is a very typical move. Waiting for the bishop to come to d3 and then taking the pawn, forcing the bishop to waste one move. But not only here. Now there is the next series of moves that that Capablanca introduced, which pretty much forces a lot of exchanges, and then that which resulting in freeing up the game for black. So remember, exchanging of pieces is going to help the person who is having a less space, because now lesser pieces are there on the board. So whatever space is there will appear to be more and more freedom. And the guy who is having more space advantage, his relative advantage will go down with exchanges. Okay, so that is it. So now he's threatening an exchange on c3 as well as the bishop on g5. So black first takes this. Because otherwise that bishop would be doubly attacked, right? By queen and the black's bishop. So he takes it, queen takes it. Knight doesn't go back because knight wants to exchange against this c3 also. Okay, so white does castle. White is not interested in exchanging because that will make it black even better, right? If white takes this knight to c3, black will take it with probably with e pawn, right? And then push back the bishop plus freeing up this bishop, right? Very beautifully. After that, black is slightly better. So white does not want to exchange, but black does want to exchange. Sorry. Sorry. So now this is the freeing maneuver. So with this now, white is again forcing. Black is forcing a set of exchanges. Again, the knight as well as the bishop are attacked. So black will be able to exchange one of the pieces and see how much freedom that black has got now, right? All his position. Now, if you see the position, it is almost equal. Okay, because black has exchanged a lot of pieces the right way, freed up, and now his bishop is also free. The rook will come on the e file, the other rook will come on the d file. Right, so whatever advantage white had, it is gone, right? So this again you go through. It's a very interesting, instructive way. How, see, if you just see it sometime at this stage, it looks as if black is constricted or restrained, and but with a series of moves, black frees himself up. Right, so this is a good example to see. Then we will go very quickly. We'll see two positions, and that is where we'll end it. Okay, so this is the position. Yeah, you can check the square count also, but it is white's turn to play. And can you think of what would be a,
Sir,
yeah?
so the meeting is ending in less than a minute. Should we rejoin?
Yeah, no, I think let us end it actually. So maybe you can just do this as homework and send it. I will stop recording.